Hello and welcome to Is This England, a show where we talk about old England games and ask just how England was this.
Hell awaits for England as they visit Turkey in their final Euro 2004 qualifier. Will the England team stand as one in Turkey, or will a missed drugs test, a player's strike, and David Beckham's worst ever haircut stand in their way?
You may be a stranger, that's what time can do. Baby, you mean everything to me.
Oh, that's a scintillating introduction there. I'm giddy.
Giddy for the bad haircut?
Well, we left on a high, didn't we?
Yeah,
It was 2-0. Beckham having an awful game but scoring a penalty in the last minute. I'm sure we'll probably get into how much time has passed in between the two games, but I'm imagining it's a couple of months from memory.
yeah.
Um, but still, it's scary despite ending on a high.
It is, yeah. And it's kind of like this, as you say, hell awaits England. They travel to Turkey, famous, welcome to hell with Galatasaray fans and all that kind of stuff. But England fans, aren't allowed to go. Let's just say that pretty much straight up now. And as we were in person last time, we have now been banished and are not allowed to talk in person in rooms anymore. So we are also at home, as the England fans were that day.
Back cozied up in our spare rooms
I know, yeah.
like a couple of nerds. Um,
Like,
let's see if the time capsule can do anything to dissuade that image of us being nerds. So the year is 2003. Do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
yeah, last time we, instead of putting something in the time capsule, we actually just kind of said about world events and kind of things that have been happening, TV and film at the time. And we've already done 2003 pretty recently with the Australia game too. So I just thought we'd round 2003 off. I can't see a reason why we'd ever come back to this bloody year. So I'm kind of putting in something that I haven't watched in ages, but I still kind of find very close to my heart when I think about it, and a very big part of kind of me growing up and a comedy I first started watching a little bit after this, and actually still is really influential, probably in a lot of weird stuff. It's the Mighty Boosh season one,
Ooh, boosh.
and something
Mighty.
I know you've not really watched before.
Correct. Yeah, do you want me to shit on your selection? Now, I couldn't shit on it because I
Yeah,
don't have a strong opinion about
you're
it.
uneducated. That's why.
Uneducated on it. I like is his name Julian?
Julian
Julian?
Barrett. Yeah.
Yeah, he's quite good in a lot of different things. And when I see him
Mm,
in something, I'm like, I'm going to like this.
yeah.
Yet the mighty Boosh has the Noel Fielding factor, which for me is the opposite of where I see him and I'm like, probably not going to like this.
He
Um,
doesn't really even do a lot of comedy these days or anything. I pretty much just see him on Bake Off, and every now and then Channel 4 have him on like some quiz program they've got
yeah,
on. I
that's
don't
it.
really know what else he does.
He must do a podcast. What's his name?
I
Noel
don't
Fielding.
Noel
I bet he
Fielding.
does.
I think it's a massive shame because like we've been talking about the Mighty Boosh. It started as like a stage show and a radio show as well. It was big in Edinburgh. It had a pilot, I think it was for BBC Three when they were still doing like really interesting TV and things like that. And then they got a commission to show, and you can see why they started off in sketch comedy as well. It is very similar in a lot of ways, not as dark as League of Gentlemen. That's
Yeah.
probably the closest thing I could give you as a comparison, but it's a lot more light-hearted, and it isn't just insane sketch after horrible, depressing, insane, like but funny sketch.
Yeah.
They're kind of, it is a lot of despair and bad things happening to Julian Barrett and just Noel Fielding walking through life just oblivious to anything. There's some great cameos in it. Matt Berry is in the first season. He's fantastic in that. It's just a brilliant, brilliant show, and much like the League of Gentlemen as well, banned from Netflix.
Yeah. I guess for similar reasons, judging by the picture that you've got in the
Yeah.
notes. Um, with Noel Fielding, I did it. We should have guessed what he's doing there, which is being a captain on Nevermind the Buzzcocks,
Oh, of course he is. Yeah,
which
yeah.
makes a
Again, just
lot
a
of
quiz
sense.
show. That's all he
Yeah.
does. And after like he'd been part of like a writing team who did something like this, me three. if anyone is into this form of like comedy and entertainment, pretty much universally loved
Mm,
things as well.
yeah.
Like the Mighty Boosh, it's kind of like a great part
Critically
of me.
acclaimed as well, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they did like a stage show as well. They took this on a stage show for something totally different as well. Lots of like iconic characters. You'd be at festivals for years, and people be shouting, "I'm old Greg." It was just a real big part of like culture for me growing up, really. And I think you should just bite the bullet and watch it.
I did try to not long ago, and there wasn't any reason why I stopped, but I will give it
Hmm.
another try again soon.
Maybe I'll
But
recommend a few particular episodes because they don't go into one of like we've got to watch the previous one to see this unless it's a returning character. But maybe I'll pick a few to go right. If you don't like these, then we can't talk. Slash, just give up.
yeah, yeah. So the Mighty Boosh is in there. Something new to enjoy.
You can't stop it.
You can't stop it. But mine, this should be done quite quick. I struggled to find anything to so I looked at films and well, I think if you do TV, I try to not do TV. I know we've replicated it
Hmm.
sometimes, but then I thought films, well, we touched on quite a lot of films in the first
Hmm.
episode, that kind of broad brush time capsule. And then albums, there were a lot of just albums by bands that we've mentioned before and things like
Hmm.
that. And it was like, oh, do I want to do like the second Kings of Leon album? No, I think it was the first. It's a great album, but I
Yeah,
think you've put the third in before, maybe, or we've spoke about it
maybe.
anyway. Um, and then, so what do I do in that situation? I look at world events. And then I always realize the only records that are kept of world events are about terrorist attacks and
Awful stuff.
explosions and global warming and the general increase of that. So what do I do in that situation? I go to WWE, which is
Yeah.
something I've done once before when I put Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels 2 in
Yeah.
there. And I thought, well, I'm not going to put a match on because I'm pretty sure this is like the roughest era, or it's just after the main Attitude Era sort of thing, 2003. So I looked at debuts from that year, and somebody who stood out is Drew McIntyre. So the WWE debut of Drew McIntyre is going in.
Much like the Mighty Boosh, we can't do anything about it now. He's in there.
That's just what we need. He's just what we need for company on this island. A really boring, sincere Scottish man.
Polite, just very polite.
Yeah. I watched funnily enough, without knowing this, I watched a full documentary about his career and life, probably about a month ago now. And I did find it quite interesting, to be fair. Um, I mean, all I can say, well, there's two things I can say really, because I don't know much about him at all. Two
Even
things
though
I'll,
you've watched the documentary, like
even though I
none of
watched
it
it,
stuck.
it's just like, yeah, he just had a life, but it was quite interesting. What first thing
Yeah.
is him? I didn't know about this. Him being, and I'm sorry for everyone listening who hates wrestling, which I'm sure is 99%. He was basically, I've never seen this before, handpicked by Vince McMahon, who like brought him out on a smack. Vince McMahon basically came out on a SmackDown and went, I know someone who's going to be the future of this company and is a definite future WWE champ. Here he is, Drew McIntyre, and he came out and it was like shit. He's the chosen one. It all kind of went to hell for him. He ended up in a novelty act with some other guys, and it was like International Party Boys or something like that they were called, and their gimmick was just getting wrecked. Then he just carried that over into his real life, and he's just like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. Uh, Leaves the WWE, does really well on the independent stuff, comes back, and then the redemption arc is fully complete with his Royal Rumble win in 2020, and then his victory in the main event of WrestleMania 36 against Brock Lesnar in an incredibly short match, which they showed in full, where they
I was
just
going to
did
say
all their moves 3 times on each other, and that was it.
that's the COVID period.
And
Well, like
that's
COVID had literally just started happening.
it wasn't it? It was like the same week. I'm pretty
It was
sure.
literally the world locked down, and then a week later, WWE were like, "Well, this is a great opportunity for us, great
Yeah.
branding opportunity to just be still going."
And with that win, he became the first and only British world champion in WWE. So he's the Andy Murray of wrestling. We're having him. Has
Yeah,
there been an English one?
totally.
Did old Bulldog ever get a go?
No,
No.
definitely not. He wouldn't have it. He's not allowed. Definitely not.
So that's it. That's what's in. Sorry again, everyone. But at least it was something different.
It's variety.
It's
We'll need
variety.
variety on the island. We'll need a very polite, huge Scottish man to eat whatever like food we've managed to scavenge from somewhere while we're watching the Premier League.
Let's talk about the Premier League then. So we're looking at the state of football now. So we're in October time for the return game, England versus Turkey. Can you remember where we were before April time? So that's what,
Hmm.
6 months? Six
Yeah,
months between the two?
kind of getting towards the end of the Premier League previous season, and now we're a few months into the next one as well. So a lot happens in this summer as well. This is kind of one of the I don't know, it's hard to say. Is it one of the biggest summers in
Yeah,
Premier League
I
history?
think
Kind of
so.
one of the biggest, some of the biggest events that happen.
Definitely. In my opinion, yeah. And the big one is the Abramovich revolution at Chelsea. I think that alone makes it one of the biggest summer. I mean, what makes a big summer? It's usually transfers, isn't it? But
It's transfers, and this was kind of the first big fucking hell. If you seen who they've bought, like again, like transfer
yeah,
markets I can really remember. Again, I'd started watching football, a year into watching it by about this point, but it's still like even with I obsessed over watching Premier League, Premiership years when I was younger, and this just didn't happen, especially like the events that led to this as well. So on the 2nd of July 2003, Chelsea were purchased by Roman Abramovich for 150 million pounds. I
which is
mean,
about the cost of a midfielder for them these days.
yeah, exactly. And then Abramovich bought Chelsea from Ken Bates 21 years after he bought the club for £1. So pretty good profit margins.
Fucking hell, yeah, yeah, yeah. That is. I mean, you would love to see that on on a graph
On man,
to
your
present
profit
it
and
to
loss
investors.
accounts, like your spreadsheets. Just look what I can do with your money. This is what I did with my own.
Let's have a look at Abramovich himself then. I mean, 150 million, we're all kind of aware of his impact on the game. But he fell in love with football by attending a Champions League game at Old Trafford between Manchester United and Real Madrid. I think if I just say the word Ronaldo, most people will know which game I mean.
The
I'm thinking,
original Ronaldo, yeah.
yeah, black kit, hat trick, unreal, unreal.
Mm.
And that I think, yeah, from there he pretty much wanted to make his mark and get involved in the game. This change of ownership changed English football forever. So he gets involved. He's spending in the first year after buying Chelsea totals nearly 120 million. Nick, you've put at this point that's the equivalent of nearly 210 million today.
Yeah, I did. I took a while to try and actually get the figures right on this, and just
Can you
trying to
get
go,
those
okay,
figures right? Isn't it all just a
uh,
bit? It's all a
I've
bit
taken
guesswork, isn't it?
I've taken a stab. It's kind of like on transfer market, which is kind of the best place you're going to go for actually how much do players go for. I then had to do the exchange rate, and then I did the inflation rate. So try that's about how much money has changed in the period. But even 210 million doesn't sound that much today.
Yeah.
In
If
like you
somebody
could
brought one of
imagine,
the big clubs now and spent 210 million pounds in a summer, you'd be like, they've got a couple of good players in, maybe.
yeah, Chelsea too. But
It's
yeah,
weird, isn't it? That
yeah, and it's hard to see because this was kind of the first sign because you also thought, even though they brought in all these good players, that just was the start of it. That was just year one. Like it was just like, and we're gonna keep doing this,
yeah,
and
and
nothing's gonna
leveling up
stop
as
us.
well. It was like Master League brought to life, really,
Yeah,
because they didn't
totally.
go all in and buy like Ronaldo straight away. I mean, they never got Ronaldo, but they would
Mm.
end up and still do buy some of the best players in the world. But they brought. Well, let's have a look. Then the first kind of the first recruitment round included Damien Duff, Claude Makelele, Wayne Bridge, Joe Cole, and Glenn Johnson. Again, that's a bit like Makelele. That's a bloody hell one. Glenn
Mm.
Johnson is a bit of a. I mean, that's a good player for the future.
Yeah.
Duff and Joe Cole, interesting, but yeah, you probably imagine Manchester United and Arsenal wouldn't have wanted either of them.
I don't know. Duff, I feel
Maybe Duff. Yeah.
Duff came off a really good World Cup in 2002, been great at Blackburn. It was kind of like, right, who's going to get him? It was just like he's clearly too good to be messing around at Blackburn anymore. Liverpool, Man United were after him. I think Arsenal weren't, just because they got Pires. So like, why would you bother? But
Yeah.
Joe Cole just been relegated with West Ham. Glenn Johnson as well. So they're kind of like the big hitters, the ones that kind of long term you'd say worked out. I think they all had really good careers at they had really good careers while they were at Chelsea, but there's also kind of like the expensive guys that didn't work out as well.
Yeah, I mean, some of these are the ones actually who like you'd think maybe he's unrealistic if you're doing Master League.
Yeah,
Crespo, he was one where I thought, oh yeah, that's gonna work out
that's
very well.
that's the one where I remember going, this is serious. Like
Yeah,
you can
yeah,
sign players from relegated clubs and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, Duff's quite. They're signing Crespo,
yeah,
the Crespo.
yeah, yeah. The Crespo, but
Yeah,
also, I guess these ones would kind of fit into the flop or didn't do so well. Juan Sebastian Veron, big name. Adrian Mutu didn't work out for different reasons.
lots of reasons.
Scott Parker didn't. I just remember him never really getting a game.
Yeah, that was the problem with Parker, wasn't it? He just never got in the team and then moved, I want to say, to Newcastle.
Didn't this?
Chelsea in a few years' time were really good, like Real Madrid were a couple of like a years after this, of just wait around the bins and you're going to find some good stuff in here.
Didn't they sign Steve Sidwell as well?
That was a few years later, yeah. I think that's
Yeah.
when they were like, okay, he's free. Let's just keep him for a year.
Jeremy was another one. Neil Sullivan and Alexei Smertin, a name I've not heard for years. It's building a right old base of a squad there, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah,
not too dissimilar to what they've kind of done this summer, except there's
yeah.
probably no
Even though
big
you've
names this summer.
heard of all these players, like even then, like I think Alexis Smertin was probably the only one I hadn't heard of.
Yeah.
Like everybody else, you knew who they were. What Chelsea are doing these days is just kind of like that person can't be real. And I don't think I've ever seen them play for Chelsea, even though they've played like 30 games now. I'm still like, where does he play? Who is it?
I've
Like I couldn't pick any of them out of a lineup.
kind of grown to respect the Chelsea thing a little bit, just in the sense of that I think they're looking at all these players and that they've bought these young players. This is in the modern day, obviously, and it's
Mm.
like I'm trying to think of how to word this because I've got a little working theory. They've looked at all these players, thinking there is really no other big league. It's the Premier League, like it just is, especially if you're in the top four.
Mm.
So a lot of these young players that they've signed are very highly rated, and essentially, if they are as good or X amount, maybe 70% upwards, as good as we think they could be, they're probably going to spend the next 10 years of their career in the Premier League for one club or another. And Chelsea are probably thinking, we're going to buy them all at some point, and who knows what price we'll play. Let's just get them in now. And then we've got them for the 10 years on these mad contracts. And if we want to sell them, we can, but we can just look at outgoings in 5 years' time.
I think the worry is when you look at like a Mudrick who has failed to impress so far, you just think, who's going to even pay anything towards him? Like, what would you pay for him now? He went for something like 90 million or something, was it?
Could you not see somebody? He's 22 years old. Could you not see him maybe if he were to leave Chelsea in 2 years, play at another club for three more in the Prem? Say that's a Newcastle or a Brighton or an Aston Villa, for example.
Hmm.
He could just have a great season there. And the way football is these days, somebody like Chelsea would just buy him back.
Could
Like,
be, yeah, it could be. We're kind of like talking about things that we're just not going to know in the future,
yeah,
but it still just feels like such a gamble, especially when they've had FFP. Maybe they're going to have charges against them. Not really quite sure yet. They're being investigated for it because they think they've got a clever way around it. But back here, a lot of the talk is kind of FFP was invented to stop Manchester City. It was actually meant to fucking control Chelsea because
yeah,
it was just like there's actually no limit. Because even now, you've got to go right. You've got to pass this test, and we've seen Everton like fined massively and deducted points because they've even though they've worked with the Premier League, they're out of their FFP kind of guidelines. But there were no guidelines. This is why it was invented, and we'd seen big spending before. Man United, Arsenal, Liverpool had all spent massively on transfers in the past.
yeah.
Blackburn, they essentially bought a league title in the mid-90s as well. But this was like 6 signings, all over £10 million, when £10 million was like 40 million today.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw just on the United spending, another random side note. We will get forward in this podcast at some point, I'm sure. Came up earlier randomly on suggested next videos on YouTube, an interview with John Gregory. And I always think, what the bloody hell happened to John Gregory? It just
Yeah.
seemed to just be we've definitely spoke about him before, but it was like a YouTube interview. It may have been off Sky Sports or something like that. Actually, I didn't actually watch it, but the thumbnail was John Gregory. I wanted to shoot Dwight York. I think that's
Fair
part of
enough.
it as well. Is that, yeah, like Man United got Dwight York because they were the best club in the league and could buy whoever they wanted from that league. But Chelsea were kind of like stepping on their toes in the European market, really.
Hmm.
The likes of Crespo. I mean, Fergie would have loved to have had him.
You'd say so, like a big name, but like, again, the Duff one is the kind of the one that always sticks out to me of like where would he have gone if Chelsea hadn't had that money? And that's kind of thing. It was just like, right, another player, another player, another player,
Mm.
and you just go every time, like, because this was in the era of newspapers still, where people actually bought newspapers, and it wasn't just clicks on websites. Literally every time you saw a newspaper, like Ranieri was stood with another Chelsea player in a Chelsea shirt, just like with it in front of him. It was like, when's this going to end? Like, can they just keep going?
Yeah, yeah.
I
No,
did. I did actually find myself liking Chelsea around this time though, just because it was really weird. Like it was
yeah,
just
yeah.
like what? Well, it was just like, what are they going to do next?
You'd watch them on Match of the Day, would you? Definitely, just to be interested. I do think it is quite similar now. I definitely think they're worth, maybe because they've had a couple of interesting games one after the other.
Hmm.
But it's mad that they've kind of reset after Abramovich has been like forced to sell the club. Really
Yeah.
crazy. But yeah, I agreed with you. I always forget that Ranieri was there at the start. I always think of Jose, but Ranieri did get Chelsea to finish second in the league. They also reached the FA Cup fifth round, the quarterfinals of the League Cup, and the Champions League semi-final. So
Yeah.
Abramovich brought a club who was already in the Champions League, unlike
Yeah.
Manchester City.
Yeah, they bought well, he bought them, and I think that was a big reason that he did, because it was immediately Champions League football. You can build something from that with the money that's going to come in. And yeah, they got to the semi-final. They knocked Arsenal out on the way there, back when they just didn't beat Arsenal. There was like
Yeah.
10 years where it was like 1 or 2 wins in 10 years over Arsenal. It was like, this is just so one-sided. And I think Wayne Bridge scored the winner at Highbury. So it was just like, this is crazy. And then the Monaco semi-finals are one of Ranieri's worst moments, really. I remember when they played them away. By the end of the game, the team looked such a mess. It had like Hasselbank was out wide right, like Robert Huth was playing, and you're just thinking, you've again, it's a bit like now that you've spent so much money. What have you done with it? And they're like
Yeah.
Monaco had 10 men at one point as well, and you just think, what on earth is going on here? Like they really chucked away a chance of going to a Champions League final. I mean, it would have been perfect if they'd have lost to Porto.
Yeah.
Like that was the one where actually Mourinho wins. He just goes
Oh,
to
was it?
Chelsea anyway.
Ah, okay. Yeah, that would have been. So was he already? They wouldn't have said he was going to Chelsea before the final, surely.
No, the Monaco Porto final, because it was just two so unfancy clubs really at the start of the season. It
Yeah.
was seen that the winner of that would get the Chelsea job, because Didier Deschamps was managing Monaco at the time. And then obviously when Mourinho wins it, he goes up. He doesn't even barely look at the trophy. He just gets his medal, takes it off, and he's just on the first plane to London.
Mad. It makes you think about the importance of managers, that those two unfancied teams got to the final, and whatever you think of the two managers, one's won the World Cup, one's
Yeah,
like arguably the second most successful, or second or third most successful club manager of all time, Mourinho. Somebody who can
yeah.
still, it's probably still got a couple of big jobs in him if the tide turns the way.
And it felt like the fun was over. That's where they became instantly unlikable under Mourinho. Like I remember just hating them when Mourinho first came around. I remember kind of when they played Liverpool in the Champions League semi-final the next year, actually really kind of wanting Liverpool to win in like the only
Yeah.
time in my life. And it was just like, you just hated everything that they stood for, really. Of like, yeah, you've cheated your way there and all this kind of stuff you think of. But it's like, yeah, that was it. There was no more Ranieri. And that starts the thing of, okay, if Abramovich can buy a club, who else can?
Yeah. So a huge summer, a huge season, and we're gonna look now at England's qualifying for the European Championships. Yay! By the way, just in general, I'm so deflated England wise at the moment. Just that we've come out at the back of the last two qualifiers, and it's like, sorry, we've done this rant a million times. Will everyone just calm the fuck down, please? Like Gareth Southgate does not have to go. He do, like he doesn't
It
have to go right now.
it
He's gonna
reminded
go.
it reminded me of like during the World Cup after we watched the USA game together, which I think I'd already called to like this is going to be a shite game, just get through it and don't lose.
Yeah.
I remember the next day someone on the internet, and it wasn't just like some absolute freak, but it was like someone who's like vaguely a reporter. Like you couldn't tell who the name is. It's like they've got a blue tick, they work for a newspaper, it could be anybody, but they were like serious consideration has to be made of making a change now. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Mid tournament, you want to sack the manager?
There was a
Like, and that's just, that's kind of where we are. I've kind of removed myself from a lot of the England discourse this week because it's just not worth it. It's like,
oh
you've
god.
already qualified. Like, why bother?
I watched a bit earlier that I did it on purpose to get me, emotional and to feel something. And it was a
Yeah.
YouTuber who's on like Talk Sport, I think, and stuff now, quite prominently, and on all these Saturday social shows
Mm.
where they get people off the internet in. And he said England won't win the Euros because, and this was his exact words, is because Gareth Southgate is a coward. Coward. I hope we fucking win. Just so you could just so he could find him and say, why did you call me a coward? We
I
won.
think I think it'd be a lot of people think that I'm just like, oh, he hasn't got any guts and all that stuff. That I think that's essentially why we just didn't bother doing any records of these like games just gone. It's just like,
Oh
why
yeah.
bother? Like it's like they're meaningless games. What does it do? England were always going to be in pot one, which is looking forward to the draw now in a couple of weeks as we record this.
Yeah. Sorry, I got us distracted and sidetracked there. We're looking at qualification for Euro 2004, England versus Turkey. The first, it feels strange to not call it a first leg, but it is what it is. It was the first
Yeah.
fixture. They played twice in the group, obviously. England won 2-0. Cue sort of crowd pitch invasions of men with massive jeans and Burberry caps celebrating with the England players, just having a bloody old laugh. But apparently UEFA did not like it. They fined England 99,000 pounds. Well, that was for the chance, which were the offensive chance more than the pitch invasions, I think.
Mm.
Yeah, I forgot to mention those. Basically just being nasty. But there wasn't a ban for playing in front of crowds, which I think some of the newspapers in England had called for as well, just to
Yeah, I
just
think
to say
England's
something.
England's previous game, I think it was Slovakia or Slovenia, whichever one. And they would play them, and actually, this was in another country. And because of their comments against England and some racist remarks, they were seen as actually, you're not going to play, they're going to play a game behind closed doors. And there was a lot of call actually for that to happen to England as well. I think we covered that, there were very offensive chants that were made by England. It was, yeah, it's just all bad. They're not no good kind of apart from what happened on the pitch, not including the pitch invaders. Everything else all around that game was just not good at all. But on it, a real like tremendous night for England. There was the best performance they'd given since beating Argentina in the World Cup the year before. Wayne Rooney had broken out to become like the most talked about footballer in England, and they now led Turkey in Euro 2004 qualification too.
Yeah, so the logical step from there is a money spinning trip. There's still You can still find them at it in 2000 in the new millennium. They didn't leave. I thought we left it in the 70s.
No way.
This time we were going to South Africa, who had just started up their bid to host the 2010 World Cup. David Beckham and England were kind of backing that. Is that the thing then? They're
Yeah.
kind of ambassadors and flying the flag for South Africa.
Yeah, they were seen as it was back in the day. I don't know how they do the well. I kind of know how they do awarding tournaments these days. It's just bribery, basically, with
Yeah,
Saudi Arabia obviously being awarded the World Cup in I don't know
2030.
however many years it is.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, the next week, Saudi Arabia now massive sponsors of FIFA. Who could have seen that coming?
Where
It's like no, totally above board.
they wasn't it that they had what was it like the call was put out and it was like we're giving everyone 2 months to get your bids
It
together.
wasn't even that. It was like 2 weeks in Australia. We're like, oh, come on.
Yeah, and then Saudi Arabia submitted it in like 16 minutes. Just
Oh, really? I didn't
yeah,
know that.
yeah, like straight after, like in the time it would take us to just respond to an email to say, "Yep, got this received." Um, yeah, so England were kind of flying the flag for South Africa, and the trip centered around David Beckham and Nelson Mandela just as much as the football, just getting them two together, those two icons for very
Yeah.
different reasons.
Yeah, it was definitely just orchestrated to just be like, get a picture of them, get as many as you can, and then let's just get out of here. Like, okay, we'll play a game if we have to. But David Beckham clearly doesn't get the memo in this, as he has, as we mentioned, probably his worst haircut ever in it.
Yeah,
Like spoiled, absolutely spoiled the photo.
yeah. If you're a young white lad, let's just put it that way,
Hmm.
and you're representing England and you're the England captain and you're going to meet Nelson Mandela
In South Africa.
in South Africa, I would say don't go with cornrows as your haircut, which is what he did. He went with them,
Yeah,
and I think he meant well. I think he was trying to be look how cool I think you are.
it is
Nelson Mandela does not have
enormous.
cornrows.
No, no, not exactly. It is massive Tom Hanks's son vibes, isn't it?
Oh yeah, that's a great shout. Dear,
Just
dear, dear.
awful.
England would play South Africa on 22nd of May 2003, 5 days after the FA Cup final, where Arsenal beat Southampton 1-0, meaning that Sol Campbell, Ashley Cole, and Wayne Bridge would. Wayne Bridge?
Yeah, he played for Southampton
Bloody
at this
hell. I thought
point.
he'd gone to Chelsea. My mind is all over the place, bridge wise. Yeah, Wayne Bridge would miss the trip, but they would meet up for the qualifiers in June. The game itself against South Africa, very forgettable. Does that surprise you?
No, this sham of a game that was put on just to back the South African bid, just so that South Africa would back England's bid for
Yeah,
the 2018 World Cup. Yeah, it is absolute nonsense. Gareth Southgate going through a career renaissance at Middlesbrough. Actually, he was excellent around this point.
I remember
Scored
that. Yeah,
inside 36 seconds,
yeah.
and then it took Emil Heskey to score the winner in the second half. It's not all handshakes and hammocks at this point, though, as David Beckham picks up an injury in the game, which rules him out of the next two England games that they've got lined up before the summer is concluded, and also buggers up a bit of his move to from Man United to Real Madrid because he was going at this point and it was known.
Do you know what the injury was?
I can't remember actually. No.
It was a fractured wrist. So he was tackled and put his hand down to stop the fall. I can see a picture of it now and just takes all of his weight on that hand.
Sure, it
BB,
wasn't like Nelson Mandela's incredibly strong handshake.
the BBC called this a workmanlike performance,
Yeah, I
the
mean, well, yeah,
barometer of quality.
they were working hard for relations there.
So, sorry, you were saying that the injury to Beckham potentially scuppered his Real Madrid move.
But it just kind of balls it up a bit because it was kind of everyone knew it was going to happen by this point. It may have even, I don't think it had quite gone through at this point, but it was seen as like, right, Beckham, he's on his way, he's leaving Man United. And immediately it's just like, oh, okay, he's got an injury. This is not good. So yeah, Real Madrid were buying a player they didn't need who was now injured.
Right, right. England would follow up the South Africa game by coming home to play against Serbia and Montenegro at the Walkers Stadium in Leicester, home of quite a few England games over the years.
Yeah, it's always seen as like if you're playing an England game away from Wembley, it's like Old Trafford, and for some reason Leicester's like a really popular game venue for some reason. I've never quite understood why. Maybe just a lot of people in Leicester like England.
Sven
Seems
played.
like that way.
Yeah, Sven played the hits for this game. He made Michael Owen the captain and made 10 changes throughout the match. England would end up winning 2-1 thanks to a late Joe Cole goal. His first for England. Also notable in this game is the debut of future England Dad of the Year, Mr. Daddy Sauce himself, Sir John of Terry. How's
England's
about
brave
that?
John Terry. He's for the first time, yeah. And it's like it's weird because he becomes such a prominent figure for England very quickly. Like within the year, he's in the side starting, and it's just like, wow, he didn't even bother giving him caps beforehand. It doesn't
Yeah.
feel like we're at the point yet where England have too many good central defenders. This is kind of the start of it, I think.
Funnily enough, I had that whole conversation on the premise that that was a competitive game. It wasn't.
No,
Bloody friendlies. Someday somebody will explain the point of them. England do finally play a qualifier though, and it's Slovakia at the Riverside Stadium. England are without Beckham, Campbell, Ferdinand, or Gary Neville, and it's a bit of a struggle because England fall behind in the first half. Step up the new captain wonder, Michael Owen. On his 50th appearance for England, Owen equalises with a penalty in the 62nd minute and grabs the winner 11 minutes later. One of those games where I have a vague memory of reading the papers the next day as a kid and thinking things that in hindsight as an adult don't make sense, such as Michael Owen should now just carry on being the captain and he's good in and he's back to his best and he's going to win us the World Cup or the
I think
Euros.
I think that's we are very, very close to kind of the bad period of Michael Owen, I want to say, but this was definitely still in the actually he's brilliant for England and still brilliant for Liverpool at this point as well. And amazing, at the age of 23, Owen's got 50 caps at this
Is he only
point.
23 and we're
He's
close to the bad?
23. Yeah,
Oh my God.
it's insane, really. There's a definite point which I'll bring up in a moment is when you know it goes bad. But 23, 50 caps, it's almost like how didn't we see this coming in terms of like player burnout?
Yeah, that is so crazy. Yeah, how didn't we see it coming? Because we're so giddy with all of his goals. So that was a good win in qualification for England, but Turkey were more than keeping pace with the Three Lions. They would beat Slovakia and Macedonia in June 2003 before taking part in their own little soiree, their own little fancy dalliance that is participating in the 2003 Confederations Cup. Sounds a bit more important than a friendly, actually, with South Africa, but apparently Turkey qualified for this tournament due to finishing third in the 2002 World Cup as runners-up. Germany declined the offer. Spain, ranked second in the world at the time, also declined, meaning Turkey would be invited. So there goes your credibility.
I know, not great at all, is it? They just Germany can't be bothered, and neither can Spain. England must have been so jealous seeing this, like the amount of crap they've been invited to over the years, and they
Yeah.
miss out on the big one. They're shunned from the Confederations Cup. Something I bet they just wish they always could have been at. Maybe that's why they like kept that space free, and they were like, okay, we haven't been invited. I guess we're going to South Africa and playing at the Walker Stadium.
Yeah, Scotland there just going, my, how the turntables. Turkey did well in the Confederations Cup, finishing second in a group containing the United States, Brazil, obviously, and Cameroon. Cameroon topped the group. Turkey qualified for knockouts with a win against the US and a 2-2 draw with Brazil. They would lose to hosts France in the semi-final, but win another bronze medal by beating Colombia 2-1. The tournament is probably most remembered for Mark Vivian Foe collapsing during the semi-final and passing away. Did he play for Manchester City at the time, or have I miss?
He may have recently played for City. I can't remember if he was still there, but he'd been there very recently. Yes,
Tragic. Yeah. Foe was awarded third place in the Golden Ball. Nick, what are your thoughts on that?
a bit shitty. If you like clearly, it's like just give it to him. Like,
Yeah.
what's the hurt going to be? Like, there's a picture at the end as well after France v Cameroon,
Wasn't
and
Henri
they've got like
wearing a shirt with his name on or something? Sorry to spoil it if that's what you were going to say.
yeah, no, they've got basically all the Cameroon players have got like 17, which was his number on it. They've got like a big kind of unveiling like board with him on the front of it as well, which is all very nice. And you just think, okay, he finished third as the best player. It's like, who cares? Who's going to look back at this and go, oh, Mark Vivian was the best player of that tournament? And that doesn't seem right. Like, nobody cares or even remembers the 2003 Confederations Cup, apart from obviously people in Cameroon. True.
Yeah. Back to qualification anyway. Well, not actually qualification, but pointless week of the season starting August friendly, where England would host Croatia at Portman Road. That I should really know that. Is that Portsmouth's ground?
Ipswich.
Ipswich's ground. Why did you
Yeah.
why do you think I said Portsmouth for Portman Road? Gotta be right. Beckham, now a Real Madrid player, despite the fractured wrist, I should say. He's back and he's scoring a penalty right where he left off, pretty much. Michael Owen would notch up his 23rd goal for England, sorry. And Frank Lampard would score a nicely placed shot from just outside the box, his first goal for England in typical Frank Lampard style. This is kind of the start of the beautiful war with Russia. I mean, you can't call it the beautiful war. It's a beautiful war, but yeah, it's one of those things, like, to use another wrestling analogy, they didn't know the Undertaker's streak was a streak until about 6 fights in. Then they're like,
Yeah.
oh, we could do something with this. Like, comes in with no fanfare really, but yeah, this is the start of about 18 years of back and forth between England and Croatia.
Maybe it's still going on. We don't know yet. Like
Could do.
it could. I mean, Croatia definitely not qualified for the Euros.
I'm not sure actually. No, I think they have, because I'm sure I heard somebody saying Luka Modric is going to play in his
Oh,
eighth major
Jesus. Will he
tournament.
just give it up? Grow up, Luca. You're not going to win it.
Yeah, Croatia have qualified as runner-up from Group D.
Insane.
I know.
They're still going. And like we say, they could get drawn with England at this Euro. So the war continues. We just don't know yet.
Gold. We're also entering the era of skinhead Michael Owen here. I love it.
This is the bad point.
That's the line.
Yeah, this is the line where it becomes unacceptable. Michael Owen playing for England. Not the fact that he shouldn't have been playing, but looking back, it's like this is where it starts. He clearly sees someone in class, they shave their head, and he goes, "That's a good look. I like this look. I've heard of the streets."
It's not it's not even a to save face for balding. Like,
No,
he's got about as much hair as me now. Like, maybe mine's a bit
yeah.
longer because I want it to be, but if I had my hair cut to that length, it would look quite similar to what he has now.
But
Which is
that's the thing, like, because you go through this era of like bald Michael Owen kind of only has one good moment for England, the Portugal game
yeah.
in the Euros, because he's like during the tournament, he's quite. I remember a lot of calls to drop him for Darius Vassell, and it was just like this goal vindicates everything. By the time he's kind of playing significant games for England and any other memory, it's kind of back to that Argentina game in 2005, and then you look even more forward. It's kind of like the last drops of Owen was the McLaren era before he just gets injured and it's like, yeah, just cannot play football anymore.
Yeah. Well, we've still got him. We've still got him at this point. Next up for England was a tricky away game in Macedonia. England, as they do often in qualification, fell behind in the first half and were rescued by Wayne Rooney's first goal for England.
It
That
feels like he
seems
scored in the last game, doesn't it? It feels like
yeah.
that was the Rooney game, but yep, no goal yet for Wayne, and it came in this game in Macedonia to get England back level.
Another Beckham penalty shortly after. There's a bit of a trend developing there, which would backfire at the tournament that we're trying to qualify for in the first game. Anyway, by scoring in that match, Rooney broke Owen's record of the youngest man to score for England. The team is still not very settled at this point. There's the formation changes and different reserve players coming in and out. Lampard would start that game and was hauled off at half time. Owen Hargreaves just tried out on the left of midfield. So
Again,
the problem, I mean, yeah, the problems are there. Christ, yeah. That penalty for Beckham, 100% goal. That was his fifth scored from 5 taken. More on
it
that to
feels
come.
like he scored about 5 games in a row with penalties as well at this point
Yeah,
too. It's like it's quite a lot. There's a Turkey game, and then we've just mentioned two as well. It feels like
definitely.
maybe when an England captain is kind of on the wane, they are just like penalties are what I do. Because the same thing kind of happened to Wayne Rooney. His
Yeah, it
scoring
did.
record for England shot up in for a couple of years where it felt like he never played for England, but he just I score penalties. That's all I do.
Yeah. So Turkey, on the other hand, will play their penultimate game of qualification in Liechtenstein, where they would get the win, meaning England's game in hand was at home to the same opponents, who they would win after huffing and puffing and finally breaking them down. So classic kind of Sven qualifying at this point with goals from Michael Owen and Wayne Rooney in the second half. Um, yeah, up next, England are primed and ready to travel to Istanbul, knowing that a draw would be good enough to see them qualify automatically for Euro 2004. But 2 weeks prior to the game, a spanner is thrown into the works in the form of a missed drugs test. Enter somebody we've not really spoken much about because he kind of sits there and does a decent job for England for a few years, but it's Rio Ferdinand. Uh,
Yeah,
Memories
it's
are
Rio
jogging.
Ferdinand, and it's just the biggest news in the world when this happened to me. It just felt like what has gone on. So we've done some research, and we're going to kind of go into what we actually think did and didn't happen with this. For people who don't know, in the autumn of 2003, it came out Rio Ferdinand had missed a drugs test while training with Man United and could face a ban for missing the test. So this is what we know.
I need
There
to
should be,
stick
yeah, I
in
was gonna
some.
say there should be like some court music or something behind this.
So this is what we know. Let's hear it, Nick.
Yeah. On Tuesday, the 23rd of September 2003, Ferdinand was selected by UK doping officials at Man United's training ground to take a drugs test. Ferdinand and 3 other teammates were selected to provide urine samples, with Ferdinand selecting to provide his after the training session once he was changed. When dressed, Ferdinand claims he forgot and went to meet Isle Berkovic, who is former West Ham teammate, currently playing at Manchester City at that point. This was after purchasing some bed linen for his new house, which he was moving into that week.
Ed
So
Linen, wink,
yeah,
wink.
yeah, he's off. He's doing stuff. He's just a busy guy. He's a forgetful, busy guy. Okay. The club couldn't contact Fernandes' mobile, and he received a text to come back to Carrington to provide the sample, which he does. But the officials had left already.
Oh, see, a lot of this is news to me. I've always kind of been a bit confused by this story. Okay, so there I'm thinking, fuck you if you're a drug official and you can't be asked to go back. Like, do you care if he's done drugs or not? Like, just find out. Surely there's enough money going around in that.
Yeah.
He's done his bit, but I'm sure there's more to this story.
Yeah, yeah. So Ferdinand's side is a guy comes to the training ground to do the drugs test, and I forgot that he was there and went out for lunch. I looked at my messages and realized I'd missed it. I said I was coming back, and they'd already left, and it all kicked off from there. So the doping officials were unable to return to Carrington immediately, and said that the earliest time they could come back was being the morning of Thursday, the 25th of September. So 2 days later. Ferdinand underwent the test, which was provided negative 44 hours after the original, after he was originally asked to do so, and it was conducted. So it's like he's missed it, he's done it, he's passed it. Should be no problem.
I think so.
You'd think,
Yeah,
really.
yeah. I think fair. Like, I'm trying to think of it without bias as well, and that seems quite fair, unless there is a bigger conspiracy at play here.
Yeah.
Um,
So Ferdinand even grew out his hair, so his follicles could be tested, dating back to up to 18 months to provide prove if he had done drugs and they had them in his system. The FA rejected the follicle test and would then take action on Ferdinand for missing the drugs test. So by not providing a sample within an hour of being asked to do so, Ferdinand was in breach of Rule E26, which carried a maximum of a 2-year suspension.
okay. Yeah. Thoughts at this point. He has broken a rule. Uh, yeah. I forget how long his ban is. But he shouldn't be anywhere near that maximum. Like, he should be. He's cooperated quite a lot there.
Mm.
Maybe should be a couple of months. I don't know. I don't know. I need
Yeah,
to stop chiming in with
it
my opinion.
No, it just gets very confusing. There's a lot of different takes on this and people different reporting as well. And this is just kind of the most that is widely accepted. So on Friday, the 3rd of October, Ferdinand received a letter from the FA stating he had failed to attend a drugs test. I would need to await the verdict on any punishment until December. So this is still 2 months to wait until they can come in. I'm assuming they're just putting together a case of like almost like a prosecution and defense and give Ferdinand time to put a defence together at this point. But in the short term, until the verdict, the FA informed Sven that Ferdinand would not be able to be selected for the England squad, which had already been delayed due to kind of these internal conversations. This was quickly followed by a call from Sir Alex Ferguson, who told Sven that he had to call up Ferdinand. That's a first.
Yeah, you know what I've said before. Forget it all. You
Yeah.
have to call him up. Oh
Yeah,
God.
it's weird the fact that he carries on playing for Manchester United during this period as well. So if you can't play for England, you kind of go, well, why is this? And the idea was apparently that because basically if he plays and England go through, Turkey could say, well, actually, this guy is now banned for a period of time. We want to replay or we want to go through over England. So that's why England, well, the FA basically was scared about this, even though they were letting Ferdinand carry on playing for Man United. So the games that Man United would play and potentially win, they weren't afraid
Yeah.
of like the Premier League teams coming up and saying, well, this isn't right.
No. Yeah, that's a strange one.
Yeah, a
Hmm.
very, very weird one. It was believed new FA Supreme Leader Mark Palios had wanted to make an early impact in the job and give Fernand a lengthy ban due to wanting to take a hard stance on drugs within English football. At this point, there hadn't been a notable failed drugs test in the Premiership, kind of like writ large of
Yeah.
whatever, for at least, for a long time. I know certain players like Paul Merson struggled with drugs and Tony Adams, but it wasn't seen as like drug cheat kicked out of football, even though in Spain and Italy there had recently been failed drugs tests, and Padas kind of thought he's going to make a stand on this and real hard line.
You know what I need to make a stand on is something that's never happened before. There's no notable cases of it happening. No, but
We
okay.
have got to crack down.
A pre-crackdown. No, absolutely. Yeah, get that point.
Yeah.
So what happened next?
On hearing that a ban could be on the cards, David Gill, Manchester United chief executive, took legal advice in an attempt to overturn any potential bans. This started a really petty war between Man United and the FA, with both sides saying they were open to discussions and interviews and all this and talking it through, but on the other side saying, "Oh, actually, we just missed your calls. We're not attending the calls. We don't want to be involved." Like it just feels like both of them are being really pathetic at this point. Of just like, no, you come to my office. No, you come to my office. I'm not going to do that like the Larry David kind of
Yeah,
spite meeting kind of thing going on, and even to the point where Palios says that he doesn't want to speak to David Gill's lawyers. He'll only speak to David Gill about this.
all the time, Rio Ferdinand must be thinking, can you please just have a meeting to talk about
Yeah.
it? Because it's my life and not yours.
And it's
Uh,
also kind of seen as maybe the club advised Ferdinand also not to cooperate with this, to kind of like we'll see this through, because it was still seen as Man United would run everything, and Ferguson, the mad people would go, David Gill runs UEFA, Ferguson's got all the referees in his pockets and all that. This was probably Man United buying into they were too big of a club to really punish for things like this.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it all kind of tops off by Chief Executive of the PFA, Gordon Taylor, alleged that Man United threatened to pull out Paul Scholes, Nicky Butt, Gary, and Phil Neville from the England squad as well.
Oh God, bloody hell! Come on, mate. We don't need to go that far, but maybe we do. I mean, you would want the players to support Rio. Um,
You'd want the players to, but you'd think as well, like you're just threatening the FA more. That can't be good.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
these guys have got like your players' future in their hands. And yeah, following Ferdinand's exclusion from the England squad, his England teammates believed he had, been treated unfairly and should be able to play in the game. One of the reasons, as we mentioned, was because of it being, seen as inappropriate he plays because of a potential replay in that. So even though he would continue to carry on playing for Man United, so something kind of had to give here. The players were not happy with how it had been handled in general, and there is talk of a strike.
strike, not a striker, a
No,
strike.
No good, no good, striker. It is a full-on strike. So during the team's meet-up in St Albans ahead of the Turkey game, players began visiting each other's room to discuss Ferdinand's treatment. 10 players in total were part of the core group who visited Paul Barber, who was the FA's director of marketing and communications at this time, saying that due to the FA's treatment of Ferdinand, they did not believe that they should be playing the game.
Right. 10
So,
players.
secret meetings, 10 players all saying no good. Could you imagine being in that hotel?
Marketing and communications as well. Like, just saying the stuff. What about the people who can actually? Surely the final decision for any ban or anything like that doesn't rest with the director of marketing and communications. I guess they're just
Yeah, I
leaning
guess
on him to influence.
he's just the head of comms guy, I guess, and they're
Yeah,
kind of going, look, we're telling you to tell everybody else this ain't happening,
yeah,
which
yeah.
is
That's it.
which is great. I mean, I know we said it before, but these faceless kind of bits of grey FA names are just great. Mark Palios, Paul Barber, Gordon Taylor. They just like could be anyone. You could show me a picture of one of them and be like, nope, no memory of that person at all. And I know that like they're not supposed to be seen front and center, but it just never felt like the FA were ever as visible as they were in this period.
Do you know where Palios is these days?
Oh, I don't actually.
He is executive chairman of Tranmere Rovers.
Okay, so yeah, he's bit of a change in career trajectory. We'll actually get to why that is a little bit later with what happens with old Mark. But it's reported that the players involved were Scholes, Butt, David James, Michael Owen, and Sol Campbell, David Beckham, Phil Neville, and ringleader Gary Neville, who was nicknamed in the papers Red Nev.
Is that a mix of him being a Man United player and a socialist? Is that what they're trying to get across?
Correct.
Of course, he's the ringleader. My God, on his soapbox.
But you wouldn't like, you still wouldn't think about that. Like, you think of him now, you very much think of like, okay, Red Nev, that's been done and hack, kind of
Yeah,
all that. But like at the time, it was just what Gary Neville, the fucking quiet bloke who stands behind David Beckham on the pitch.
yeah. I would have been more like Gary Neville. That joke, like
Yeah,
like I know he was a good player, but as like when I was younger, just the word the Neville word was like a byword for like shit footballers.
yeah. No, no, absolutely. That was the thing with like that awful England chant. If the Nevilles can play for England, so can I, and all
That's
that
it.
kind of silliness and
Yeah.
whatever. But yeah, their argument was if England lost in Turkey and went out in the playoffs, how much money would the FA lose? Of like, well, you're kind of shooting yourselves in the foot here. What would the press say
3D
about it?
chess. 3D chess from Red Nev. Love
I
that.
know, yeah, yeah, you better get onto this and kind of like, yeah, odd. And then Barber spoke to Palios on the phone, who responded saying the FA would not budge on this. England's unhappy players said, and the rest of the team together would reconvene at 10 p.m. So we've got like a timeline on this day as well, amazingly.
I'm
Gary
imagining
Neville.
I'm imagining Nev going, oh, I'm just no sorry, I'm just thinking what would happen if Emre was just left to roam down that right side on his own?
He's going to
Oh,
run
could
past me
be
and I'm going to do nothing about it.
could be dangerous, could be dangerous. That's all I'm saying. Hopefully that doesn't have to come to that.
I know. Neville was actually called the most hated man in football as well at this
You know,
point, just for
it's not
like,
changed, has he?
I know, nothing has. So Neville even called Sir Alex Ferguson to ask his advice, which was make them sweat. Could
Yeah.
you imagine how much Ferguson would have been loving this? Just sat home one night, red wine and whiskey, watching the TV, and Gary Neville calls him saying, "How can I piss off the FA?"
Oh my God, he would have been absolutely loving it. Just, yeah, rubbing his hands with glee. I think it's easier to make people sweat if you're Sir Alex Ferguson than it is if you're Gary Neville.
But also, what are the consequences for Ferguson if he just goes, "Fuck him, who
Oh
cares?" Like
no.
he gets all of his players back and
Yeah,
upsets
yeah.
the FA and really puts them out of joint as well. Just like that being in his house must have been like waiting to hear if a hit had happened or something.
Just watching that phone,
Man, just
thinking,
looking on Sky Sports News, going nothing yet.
nothing yet, nothing yet. Somebody
Um,
else, somebody else calls, and he's like, "I've got to look. I'm expecting a call. I'll call
yeah,
you back. Don't
I've
don't
got
interrupt this line."
I've got to keep this line free. Beckham said that he wasn't happy about Alex Ferguson getting involved, which led to him and Gary Neville falling out, apparently, due to Beckham leaving Man United months earlier, as we mentioned, and kind of falling out badly with Ferguson. Them two kind of like barely saying a word between each other when Ferguson sold Beckham to Real Madrid. Ferguson is also seen by Niall Quinn as a reason Roy Keane had left the Ireland camp ahead of the 2002 World Cup for his helicoptering over the situation. So he's got previous.
And he knows it and he doesn't give a shit. He's
Not
loving
at
it.
all.
Love it.
Yeah. A strike ballot was unanimously passed. Most surprisingly, John Terry even agreed to it, which is a massive shock.
Why? Because you think he's selfish.
Well, it would mean that with Ferdinand, not in the team, it would mean Terry would lose his place, and Ferdinand would play for England again in Turkey. And he also seems like the least likely man on earth, to participate in a strike,
Yeah. Just doing my
unless
job.
it's unless it's like on field, a strike against the current outgoing Chelsea manager, which he'd be like well up for, I imagine. But he
Yeah.
definitely feels like a massive grass to the FA.
He's just there gone, have you considered fronting up and saying, I'll take it on the chin? And then he goes, well, it doesn't really work in that situation. Well, I'm all out of ideas then.
I'm gonna go and tell Mark Palios that this is all on me. It's like, that's not the point. Gary Neville's just going, hold on, this is on me actually. Like they're
It's on
having
all
me
of
off.
us. It's on all of us. It's like a shared responsibility.
That's what a strike is. It's not you just going, I'll sort it out.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Um,
so yeah, so just to recap, that
yeah,
was
yeah.
10, was it 10 players?
So it's 10 players who originally went to the FA, and then they took a vote amongst every player, and it
In the
was
squad.
unanimously passed that they were
Right.
like, we should not play
Against Turkey.
Against Turkey, unless Ferdinand is reinstated into the team.
Shit. It's getting serious now.
Yeah, yeah. There were players who agreed that the treatment was wrong on Ferdinand, but believed that they had to get on with the game and couldn't risk being banned from qualifying. With Beckham's voicing the players had gone too far, apparently, amongst in the camp as well. So you can definitely see where Beckham's head is turned of just like Ferguson's getting involved. I'm pissed off now.
Yeah, yeah. He's
This
in
was supposed to
Spain.
be about us.
Yeah. Oh man. Oh,
Yeah.
it's a difficult one, this.
I know. So once it had been agreed that the team would make their voices heard, the story was then leaked by the players to various newspapers and made the 11:30 p.m. editions, with Palios being called to comment, which he declined. So this manages to break like 2 days out from qualifying game.
Yeah. Jesus, that is so crazy.
I know, yeah. And again, this would have happened like overnight when you think about it. Well, the first you would have heard about it would have been picking up the newspaper in the morning.
This is a new one for England, really, in terms of fucking it up with mad shit.
Yeah, totally. And you think to yourself, where is Palios in all this? They're kind of going in between, faceless FA man 392 and him. But where is he at this point? At Sol Campbell's disciplinary hearing regarding an incident which happened 2 months previously in the Community Shield.
Yeah.
So he's got a lot on his plate. Following the avoidance of his ban and a simplifying, Sol Campbell spent the night talking to Garth Crooks at the bar.
Do you think there's any correlation between kind of Palios being sort of in control to a degree at this point, and really just focusing on discipline and the image of the game? And then 7 years later, when England can't produce a good player except for Jack Wilshere, because maybe they could have focused on bringing through the next generation of talent at this point instead of, banning the current one.
Lots of like crap going on. Yeah, because I guess he's fighting so many fires, like to start a big program to then create a load of good players in the future. It's not really on the FA's thing here. It's just like we still know the best. We still produce David Beckham. Have you seen David Beckham doing really well, isn't he? He's gone to Real Madrid now. So
Friends with Nelson Mandela now.
Yeah, exactly. Just holds up the photo. We don't need a youth system. We've got
We did
this.
this.
The next morning at breakfast, Barber, now chief executive at Brighton. So the comms guy is now chief executive at Brighton, by the way, in real time.
Shit, no way.
So he's gone through and seen all this.
Christ, that is one hell of a step up from marketing.
Yeah, just the marketing and comms director. So Barber at breakfast the next morning is said to have visited smaller groups of England players during breakfast. So they would kind of sit on certain tables, usually if they played for like the same club. So the Man United players would sit on one table, Liverpool on the other, Chelsea, all that kind of stuff. And he said to have like gone round and just been like, oh, they just wouldn't be able to postpone the game, but they could, be thrown out of the tournament altogether and not even get into a playoff spot if like the players keep this up. So bit of, getting in there and sticking the knife in
Yeah, yeah.
to kind of putting like seeds of doubt in the players' minds as well.
I'm trying to again say something new. I think the only time I can think of anything similar is maybe there was a bit of argument around was it the One Love thing at the last World Cup?
Yes.
And then it was, oh, are they gonna not play? But I guess that was beyond England, wasn't it? That was a few countries involved in that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and again, that was all so last minute as well. Of can they? Can't they? This has changed, and this is middle of the night, and then breakfast, blurry eyed stuff as well. England end up postponing their press conference, where four England players were supposed to appear in front of the media. That was postponed as the players took training after 2 p.m. Darius Vassell, Owen Hargreaves, and David James appeared in the hotel foyer looking tired, talking about clearing their heads with some needed retail therapy.
Oh my God, where's the comms guy there?
But
Don't say
like,
that.
do you just not think like, what are you doing? Like, apparently, a taxi was ordered to take them to the shopping centre in St Albans, and David James just came back after 20 minutes.
Imagine though, you there as well as a journalist, you want the story, and you think, oh, it's gonna who am I gonna speak to? What they're gonna say, and then you see Darius Vassell, Owen Hargreaves, and David James. It's kind of what like, do I even bother asking them? You think,
Do they even know?
yeah,
Like,
they say I'm just going to the shops.
I can't imagine Owen Hargreaves in a clothes shop.
No, same.
Just not at all. Darius Vassell, maybe. David James, definitely. But
Yeah,
David James
definitely.
comes back 20 minutes afterwards anyway. And you just think, you bloody mollycoddled rich footballers. I need to just get my headspace, go to the shops. It's like Mean Girls or something.
Anchorman vibes.
Yeah, definitely.
Suit shopping.
The press conference finally got underway at 4 p.m. with only people on the table being Barber and the FA's press officer. Yeah, no players. Barber warned that England could be thrown out of the competition if they failed to complete the fixture. Ferdinand himself called some of his teammates and told them to go to Istanbul without him. And Ferdinand's agent, Pini Zahavi, said England was more important to him alone than that alone, and that he doesn't want to strike. He wants to play in the year 2004, so we want them to go and play in Turkey. So Ferdinand, wrong thing to say. You're supposed to be
Um,
standing with your brothers at this point.
yeah, I know, but he probably doesn't want to appear like the bad guy because I imagine that the public are making England out like the players who want to strike to be the bad guys at this point. It probably is better that everyone just goes and plays the game because it's the FA you're dealing with. You just
Hmm.
know that this isn't going to be a helpful solution, and it's not going to be quick.
No, and that's the thing. You're dragging out another process, maybe. And Palios finally appeared and announced that the strike was off, and the players would be going to Turkey, but only if the newspapers were given a statement by the players, which was signed off by the manager as well, stating that the FA and Palios's conduct had been awful during the process. Sven, as we say, notable by his absence. He's had nothing to do with this. He's just totally washed his hands of it. Said
Absolutely.
I'm happy to see that everything has been sorted out before the Turkey game.
Oh man,
Just gone to bed, not lost a wink of sleep about that, has he?
everything's been sorted. Isn't this nice?
Oh, we're playing, are we? Brilliant. Same money? Yeah, no problem.
That is so fucking
Just
funny.
imagine the players. Sleep much, Sven? Yes, lots.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah, you.
Had a few margaritas to calm the nerves, obviously.
Oh dear. So it's sorted. Sven's happy.
Sven's
Um,
happy. Yep. He did say that he hoped with the players uniting together, it would help them qualify for Turkey as well. Well, through and in Turkey through to the Euros too. So yeah, hoping it would kind of unite them. And during the game, we hear so much about the players are now together. This experience has brought them together and whatever. However much of that is true, we don't really know. But it felt like you were kind of going to the worst place on earth following what you've just been through.
Yeah, it would already have been a different England performance because of the location and the intensity of the first leg. They
And the
probably already were.
pressure,
Yeah, the pressure as
pressure
well. It's a
they're
big
under now
game.
as well. You've made such a big fuss about this.
Where are we at then? So what the players have put the statement out or what have you in the papers?
Yeah, the players have put their statement out saying that they kind of felt unhappy because it was believed that the FA had released the story and Ferdinand's name out into the press. So it was already seen as like, right, it's going to create a sense of guilt against Ferdinand, which Palace denied. And so they weren't happy about it. It was more the fact that he'd been like wrung out to dry and they thought the FA had leaked it. And it turned out they hadn't been the ones that had leaked it either.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm tired of it by this point as
Yeah.
well, to be honest. I wish I had a Sven attitude. Just let you talk for the last however long and then just going, oh, it's all sorted now, isn't it? Water under the
Well,
bridge.
with all this, I don't think I've ever asked you what did you think about Ferdinand, about what happened with Ferdinand, basically with the events that happened and what it caused afterwards. What are your thoughts? Because I don't think we've ever spoken about it together.
I remember being confused and not like this is as most as I've ever thought about it, to be honest.
Mm,
I remember being confused and not really understanding what it was. Also, not caring that much because I think had he been having a bit of a few games or a bit of a bad stretch for Man United, and
so
I
we
imagine thinking John Terry coming in is a good thing.
I think he'd been since signing for Man United, he'd been good without being great. He was the most expensive defender in the world when he came in, and he
Yeah,
was fine in his first season and was seen as having a bit of a better season. I think he lost Man United 2 goals in a Champions League game, which was like straight after this mixed drug test. So you don't quite
yeah.
know how much that's playing on his mind as well. And you do think in the build up, you just think, is this such a massive distraction, like you say? But whether there was a reason Ferdinand, do you believe that he forgot basically?
Oh, that's hard. That is hard. I'm inclined to go yes because
Mm,
footballers, well, because it's busy life. I forget to do things in a day.
mm,
I probably wouldn't forget a drug test, but they probably are drug tested all the time. So I'm not. So
yeah.
like it's a different sort of criteria for that. I think he could have easily forgot. That makes a lot of sense. I would also say there isn't much because if he was, I mean, doing any sort of like performance enhancing drugs or anything like that, which I'm guessing is what they're looking for rather than recreational.
It was both. They were looking for both. Well, it's just a drugs test. So if something comes up in your system, it's going to be flagged.
Mm, well, I don't think you could say there was a culture of performance enhancing at Man United. I've never heard any other Man United player be even like the hint of a rumor. Um, it could have been a party thing, but then he kind of cooperated. I mean,
Mm.
unless he timed it like, and he knew I need this. I mean,
Amount of time. Yeah, there is talk which we'll get onto a little bit as well about because his phone was hacked during this period too,
yeah.
and
Oh God.
details of like doctors' numbers being wrong during this were allegedly leaked. So Fernand refute those claims and say, actually, if you've got the evidence, then show it and whatever. And there were certain like doctored images as well of his phone records that were incorrect, that were printed in the papers too. So it's all just a massive mess, really, all because he has allegedly forgot to take a drug test and not even failed one at this point. That's where that was always the thing for me of he's not failed a drugs test, but could face a ban worse than if he had failed one.
Yeah, Christ, that's a very good way of looking at it. Um, yeah, overall, care wise, didn't care much. Was mainly focused on Rooney for England.
Yeah.
Man United,
Just staring at Rooney.
Man United, as a fan of them, I was pretty sure that we were probably just too strong at that point anyway. To even somebody as good as Rio Ferdinand for that to be a massive gap. Looking back morally and everything like that, I do think it's a tricky one, and my gut would say he probably just forgot. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair. We'll kind of never know, but we'll look into like
Yeah.
the reasons in a bit of what actually ended up happening. Just to kind of end that note before we kind of actually look at the game itself, because it is a massive game. The papers then kind of turned on England as well. The players, they were kind of like put out general statements to be like, yes, this is just what's happening, reporting facts. And then days later were called obscenely overpaid turkeys and traitors, with the press also trying to say there had been a split in the England camp, which Beckham had refuted in an interview as well. So it's all turned. Your local man on the street hates England now, and the players. And what are they doing? It's all kicked off before we land in Istanbul.
Beckham refutes that there's a split in the camp then, but there is only one way to find out. That's the game itself. England versus Turkey in Istanbul on Saturday, the 11th of October, 2003. Following the altercations in the first game, the FA, you can still find them at the centre of it all. They had taken the stance of withdrawing their share of match tickets for the game and banned fans from the stadium unless they could prove they were Turkey supporters. Is that right?
So fans in general had been banned if they weren't Turkey fans. Is that?
So is this the Turkish FA banning it then?
So the FA had withdrawn their own tickets from the game. So they said, we will not be taking any tickets for this, but you were then not allowed in the stadium if you were not a Turkey supporter, and you somehow had to prove that as well.
Somehow, big time.
Yeah.
That's a weird one. I've got the shirt. Yeah, but you've got a St. George's flag on your face as well, mate.
It's
Tattooed.
tattooed onto the top of your bald head.
The screening process then that would start at the airport. There were 5,000 local police as well as dozens of British and Turkish officers on site to screen fans as they arrived. Before the game, apparently as many as 43 England fans had arrived in Istanbul and were booked on flights back to Britain. Following this, local police barred anyone without Turkish ID trying to enter the stadium. Despite this, Turkish TV were reporting English fans were walking around the city with hooligan gangs saying hundreds would make their presence felt. Like we'd said
Like
last time as well.
It's like some sort of yob Christmas, this, isn't it?
It's big. It is big. I mean, like, it's bad news, but big news all the same. You don't get this happening many. Seems to be over the top, really. I feel like there's quite a lot of
I
trouble.
don't know.
Mm.
I think you've got to remember there was the whole thing that happened with the Galatasaray and Leeds fans. Then there was
which
the
I'd forgot. So,
Suella Brothers. Yeah, the Suella Braverman Avengers team that had gone over there to the final in Copenhagen to be like, yeah, you want to mess with all of us, kind of like idiots as well. So like there was a clear aim to like make these games like awful. So you just kind of go, right, you've not even got the chance to do that now.
To try and quell the hostilities, local Turkish fans were told not to jeer any England players during the match. I think that'd be a good thing in all football, really. Just enjoy it. They were banned. Nice. And Turkish fans were banned from bringing telephones, coins, lighters, umbrellas, bottles, flares, or fireworks. All items really that could be thrown onto the pitch. Banning fireworks is a good shout, actually. I'd agree with that one.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. You'd say flares. England fans would definitely bring them, looking at the size of their trousers the other week.
There's only really one man who could stand up in such hostile atmosphere and take control. I think we've seen him once or twice before. Your friend and mine, Pierluigi Collina. How's about that?
Absolutely.
How fitting.
Thrilling.
Yeah.
Just absolutely thrilling that he is like at the center of like, you've got to remember, this is like fireworks are going off outside the ground. It's the most hostile atmosphere like you could ever imagine after like, all right, wait till we get you back over here. That is the ultimate one of these. And this absolute fire pit of like the players even hating each other. The arguments in the tunnels and things like that after the game, and what happened on the pitch with fights. And you just think, who is going to sort this out? And this is like, it's like a celebrity ref in the game, isn't it? It's like a UFC fighter or Ken Shamrock or something coming in.
England's team, then, we have David James in goal, Gary Neville, John Terry, Sol Campbell, and Ashley Cole at the back. David Beckham, Nicky Butt, Paul Scholes, and Steven Gerrard in midfield with Wayne Rooney and Emil Heskey up front. Is that a beer you're drinking?
It is indeed.
You bastard. On the bench, Paul Robinson, Matthew Upson, Phil Neville, Wayne Bridge, Frank Lampard, Kieran Dyer, and Darius Vassell. quite a weak bench that, and a very similar team to first time out, if I recall.
Yeah, not too dissimilar, is it? Obviously, Ferdinand would not be here, so only White Van Man's favourite John Terry would win his fifth England cap. Again, feels like he should have a lot more by this point, where he's playing in like a massive game. But you'd also say it's kind of like a game he'd absolutely relish as well. John Terry, like so early into his England career, you just always imagine he had this proper mentality of I'll show you, this is what I want, like a Vinnie Jones or something playing for you. Just like
Yeah.
bring it on, bring the fire and the brimstone.
Circumstances we've already detailed as well means he's pushed up the pecking order a little bit if he wasn't already a starter. Heskey starts up front with Rooney, the World Cup 2010 strike force, Capello's favourite.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah.
Michael Owen failing a late fitness test there, which isn't
I
what
was
you
going to
want,
say
is it?
during
You know,
no, but kind of, do you not want this Heskey and this Rooney up top, like two massive heavyweights? Like Michael Owen, you feel we just kind of get lost in the game?
maybe. I'm not sure about this Heskey. I'm not sure what he was like in this era. I feel like he was maybe, but I know what you mean. Just like age
Mm,
wise and profile wise, yeah.
yeah.
Vassell did have a big impact in the first game, but doesn't take Owen's place. Yeah, he was kind of he got a goal, didn't he?
Yeah,
In the
he came
first.
on and scored, and I feel like Vissel kind of lived off that for a good period of time. Of like he did come on in that game and score that goal, and if up for a long time, Vissel would just come on and be better than whoever he'd replace around this point for England. Of like maybe he should play a lot more, but Sven doesn't think so. It's Heskey he wants. He wants that presence up front of holding the ball up in a massively hostile atmosphere, and also a nice little stat from previous to this game. At this point, England had never lost a game in which Steven Gerrard had started.
You gotta love it. You've gotta love it. It's all looking okay-ish then for England. Do you want to give us the Turkey team?
Yeah, yeah, I will do indeed. In goal, Rushdie Rekber, and then they're playing Fatih, Alpay, Bullant, and Ibrahim. It's about four. Okan, Sergan, Tugay, and Emre in midfield, and Nihat and Hakun Suka returns. So amazing, really, that they've gone back to Hakan Suka after he was left on the bench with all of his Blackburn mates in and around the team anyway. And
Mm.
Tunçay is on the bench, one of the notable names for Turkey. He had kind of starred and broken out in that 2003 Confederations Cup tournament for Turkey and won the silver ball. So beat out Mark Vivian Foe. For that he did in that point. Yeah, he was brilliant in that tournament. I think he won the silver shoe. So I think that's like second top scorer or something like that. I think 3 goals and an assist in the tournament. So he was really good at this point. And England and Turkey themselves are incredibly close in FIFA rankings and quality. So England's 7th in the table, Turkey 11th as well.
Ah, so yeah, it's all set up for us to hear some beautiful national anthems, except England's anthem, of course, gets booed. So yeah, that's gone out the window. Don't jeer the players. You're booing the Queen. How dare
Yeah, but
you?
also it's like one quick verse as well. Like they don't even bother doing the second. It's like, right, just get this shit out of the way. Like legally, we have to play the England anthem, and it gets booed the shit out of, obviously. So weirdly, we also get Alan Shearer on co-coms, which is something I
Yeah,
never remember hearing before.
what I would call a failed experiment.
It is a bit, isn't it? It's not great. We also get the England players with their arms around each other during the anthems. Big sign of unity. Like a lot was made about that as well. Apparently, of like we never seen the England players do that before. So have we never seen like England players arm in arm before?
I know. I feel like
It
they
feels
must
like we
have.
must have.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's amazing as well. Just on the anthems, by the way, the Turkey national anthem is very Rocky Four goes to fight Ivan Drago in the Soviet Russia. It is stunning, that anthem.
Right. Let's soak up a bit of the atmosphere
The
then.
stadium is rocking. England have been, I'm sure, well prepared for the type of support that Turkey have. It crosses the boundaries maybe from time to time, but there's no doubting the passion. It needs a strong referee, this game. It's certainly got one. Turkey have done their homework. They've noted that all 5 of the goals England have conceded in this group have come in the first half. And of course you can add to that the two Besiktas goals that beat Chelsea earlier this month that came before half-time at Stamford Bridge. Turkey in red. The pitch is well grassed.
Right. Sounds good. Sounds fever pitch. On commentary, we have Martin Tyler alongside Shearer. Shearer's still an active player at this point, which is an interesting move, really. So he could have still been playing for England.
Not seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, imagine that. Like he just comes out of retirement for one last fight.
To play with Rooney up top. I mean, Shearer, you know, when you spoke about Owen, potentially the game passing him by, I don't think that could have happened to Shearer. You've said here, there's only two ways you can get through a game like this. Do you want to tell us what those two ways are from the outset?
Yeah, you'd imagine like big game away from home, mad atmosphere. You either kind of like kill the game with technique and try and out football the home side, you kill the home crowd, or you just kick and muscle your way through it. And England actually choose the former, which I was hugely surprised at. I had already actually written England choose the latter and they kick and mess their way through it. But England are really good in the opening 15 minutes, actually, playing really nice football. They're quite direct with it, but there's no way like the midfield they're allowed to be run over either, which is really impressive.
Yeah, I agree. I was surprised. Yeah, I actually maybe should take back Shearer being able to contribute, because if it was the fighting one, he probably would have, but maybe not at this point. The nice technical football. Rooney has a brilliant opportunity around 20 minutes in with Alpe on the halfway line, who kicks the ball straight to Beckham, who plays one over the top for Rooney, and Rooney's one-on-one with the keeper. There's pretty much an open goal as Rushdo is on the edge of his area, but the ball keeps bouncing. Rooney can't control it correctly, and he just ends up dropping a bit of a chipped shot onto the top of the net. But it's what comes next, really, that indicates a much bigger change in this game.
Plenty of space on the left-hand side here for Steven Gerrard. England's lucky charm. Oh, penalty! Well, that lucky charm extends here to a run into the Turkish penalty area, and referee Kalina pointing to the spot.
I have to say there's not too many face tests from Turkey going on there, because they think it's a penalty, and so do I. It's a great run from Steven Gerrard. What he's been able to do is he's had a run at the defender, he's gone at a pace, he's knocked it past one, flicked it inside, and he was too clever for it.
Guy being the player who is adjudged to have made contact there.
And it's an England penalty.
Fantastic, really. I think Gerrard goes down to the box. It's an England penalty. Gerrard kind of dances through a few players. Tugo just sticks a leg out, and there's just like so few complaints in the Turkey players. You just see them all go, "Oh no," and then they just go, "Fine," and then it's just such a clear penalty. Like nobody even bothers. Even like two guys got like his hands out, like silently just staring at the referee, like I didn't do anything wrong, but everyone knows, yeah, massive penalty, basically.
Yeah. Good, but fair play to Gerrard for winning it as well. I'm dreading this, but let's hear the penalty.
And he did. Referee spot on.
Will David Beckham be spot on? He scored, of course, in England against Turkey from the spot. Oh dear! He lit it, and he skied it, and Turkey have got plenty to say about it. Beckham fails Sven Eriksson and England. He certainly lost his footing. It was an extraordinary miss.
He's just slipped, man. That's all you can see. He's lost his footing. His footing's gone away, and he skied it over the bar. Incredible.
And it's that is one of the worst penalties I've ever seen. I've never seen it go that high. It went so high. Like, the circumstances around it. So, yeah, it's a miss. It's a miss. First of all, it's not high in the roof of the net. It's a missed penalty from Beckham, who loses his footing as he runs up. I think does the entire like penalty spot just kind of come apart as well. I think it's shown a little bit later on. But I'll let you describe just how awful it is shortly. I mean, you can probably just,
Yeah,
repeat what I've said. It's
it's
very
it's
high.
it's kind of like you hear in Tyler's commentary. It's like he is so shocked by it. It's like, oh dear,
Yeah.
like it's honestly like you've pressed the wrong button on like a controller. It's
It's
just
what,
gone
yeah.
so badly wrong.
But it's what happened afterwards that kind of adds something else as well to this game. So Alpine is straight over to celebrate in Beckham's face before he's even got himself up off the floor. Beckham kind of gets back in his face. And then Rushtu gets involved as well to pull him away. We had mentioned earlier Beckham had scored every penalty so far for England, so that's his first missed penalty for England. Yeah, lots of jokes about Johnny Wilkinson and David Beckham adverts.
Yeah, there were because like, I think around the time England would have won the Rugby World Cup, and it was a lot of like I think it may have been Shaw or something like that, or maybe they both had like Adidas sponsorships. But I definitely remember them both doing adverts where they were trying to kick the ball into the rugby goal. Let's just say for my lack of knowledge of rugby, the rugby goal.
Yeah.
It was just them both doing that, and there was lots of bloody been practicing that sport too much, hasn't he? Beckham, he's got it wrong. He put it over the goal. Like, okay,
Yeah.
let's just move on.
Yeah, it was a very dodgy penalty, and we don't want to see Beckham in such circumstances. England would create another good chance a couple of minutes later after a great run from Wayne Rooney. Scholes would steal it off Rooney's foot and shoot just wide. England really being the better team in a big game away from home, despite the unmissed penalty. The performance is very un-England, but the missed penalty is kind of a bit England. Yeah.
Can't have nice things.
No, Turkey haven't created much at all, we've got to say. Their best chance was just from a bit of a flap from James at a corner, as to be expected. And that's cleared right on half time. Let's have a little bit of a listen to the atmosphere at half time.
It's half time in Istanbul, and so far so good would be one interpretation for a 0-0 scoreline. It could have been much, much better, because David Beckham has missed a penalty here. Everything he does is news, particularly this. Paul Scholes straight afterwards had another great chance to put England in front. Those opportunities have been passed up, and Turkey gave England some concern with a late rally before the half-time whistle in Istanbul, though. England need a draw, remember. They are drawing at half-time, 0-0.
Hostile and shocking. Is it? It's not right, is it? Well, it's definitely not right. But we've got another fight. We've got another fight on our hands. Brawl in the tunnel. Security struggling to keep the players apart. Richard Keys shows us footage of Alpay walking off and poking Beckham in the face. I mean, you could almost say poking a finger up his nostril. Beckham chases him.
Yeah, it's close, isn't it?
Beckham chases him down the tunnel in response to that. Let's hear from Jeff Shreves.
What sparked it? We saw Alpay put his face in David Beckham's after the penalty miss. He's a pest, isn't he? Look at that. Jeff Shreves, we can hear from. He's in that tunnel. Jeff, what's happening?
Richard, basically it carried on into the concertina of the tunnel where there became a logjam. There was a huge melee in there. Then they spilt out into this area just in front of the dressing rooms. It seems between Emre and Emil Heskey. They were trying to get at each other, and then all sorts of people dived in. Trainers, doctors, police. Basically, it was a mini riot. There was about 50 people involved. Kalina was trying to get control. Then they managed to separate the two warring parties. And then David Beckham seemed to be marched alone to Kalina's room with Ray Whitworth, the England security man. Now, what was said in that meeting, I don't know. Whether he was trying to call tempers, I have no idea. Now, the warring parties have been separated, but feelings are running very high down here.
I absolutely love the little he's a pest, isn't he? From Keys, like such like a thing you just don't hear anymore, because like you've just got like people like Dave Jones, who is like presenter robot 500 for Sky. You don't actually get him saying like, any opinion of what he thinks, but Richard Keys has never been like short to ever do that. I'm just like, oh, what an absolute nuisance that man is. And it's like hot mic, Richard, hot mic.
This halftime was a lot of madness. Was it Wilkins and Souness as well in there?
And Andy Gray's there as well, yeah.
And Andy Gray, they were all kicking off. Souness said Alpay's behaviour was un-British and that any normal male would react by wanting to attack him back, basically, or retaliate like Beckham did. I think I heard at that point Wilkins going, let's not forget, by the way, he plies his trade in our country. And it's like, oh my God, come on, come on. Like,
So good, isn't it? It's like you could not have like bigger disgraced white British guys just being like, I tell you what, as well, I haven't seen his passport. Like he's so close of like we pay his fucking wages over here. He comes over, he goes back home and slags us off, pokes the England captain in the face.
we go over there and he pokes us in the nose, not having it. um Yeah, so it was a bit of a scrap actually, all told. Hassan Sass was said to supposedly sparked the row by spitting at Ashley Cole, prompting Heskey and Campbell to take matters into their own hands. Leave me out of that one. I don't want Heskey and Campbell on me. Christ.
Nope.
A Turkish FA spokesman after the game said there were other players who were spitting and punching, which I guess makes it all right.
Oh, it's fine. There were lots of players were doing that. No problem then.
Former England and Man United masseur Rod Thornley had a front row view of the action. So this is Rod's account. It went off in the tunnel. Emil Heskey was right in the middle of it all. Their security was splitting it all up in the middle. Alpay was at the front going, English effing seas. Then I see this white
Make your own
fish.
mind up.
Then I see this white fish. Fish. I was going to say English fish and chips. Then I see this white fist coming from nowhere and knocking him to the ground. That's Alpay, the fist of justice. Wazza cleaned Alpay out, so it was Wazza. He's done him. Heskey was right in the middle of it all, but Wazza's cleaned out Alpay. I mean, that's good for brand Wayne, isn't it? That.
That's so ruiny. He's 18 at this point as well, having to go at like a fully grown like man in Alpay who is like he had a fight with a fan in the last game as well.
Then all you hear is Alpay, Beckham, me, no. And that call was made by Kalina, who stopped the whole thing with his voice, and the two captains went with Kalina back into the dressing rooms afterwards. And yeah, they're told the next thing that happened on the pitch would be a red. That is high stakes, man. It's like Squid Game.
Man, I know. Just imagine being Rod Thornley and just having this fucking story just kept in your locker. Like he must have told that so many times down the pub, and like he's on the podcast or something. Where he's talking about it. Like clearly they've got him on because they've heard him down the pub do this great story. And the picture we've got as well when he's on this podcast, he's got a beer on as well. So just like his natural habitat has to be 2 beers in to get this story really good as well.
Well, we can see 2 beers on that picture, and I'll be honest, that looks like a snake bite to me. Snake bite and black.
Oh, do you think so? Oh, I don't know. I don't know if that's got Mao written on the front of it, maybe though, from the picture we've got here. But yeah, he looks like he enjoys a beer, and good on him. I'd dine out on that story forever if I was like in the middle of Emil Heskey having a massive fight with the entire Turkey team.
Yeah, Heskey did have his own say on the fight. He said, I'm laid back. I was going to the dressing room to get to the breakout area. I see Hassan Sash and Ashley Cole. Oh, that's a tongue twister. Having an argument, which happened. But everyone jumped in. I saw a security guard coming for me. Then it was on. I can't get hit. I have to defend myself. It was a mass brawl. Everyone was throwing punches. Behind us in the tunnel, there was another fight in there. Wazza was with someone. Alpay, as we've established. And it was good fun. Heskey says, just good old-fashioned fun. Yeah, we're back to the commentators on the pitch now. Shearer's fuming, saying Alpay stuck his fingers up Beckham's nose. It does look like he did. So baby, such a baby thing to do. Beckham said of Alpay, he clipped me around the ear and said something nasty about my mother. It was not a nice thing to hear. Then I confronted him in the tunnel, and all the other players started coming in, and their players were overreacting. Christ almighty. This would end up with the FA being fined £4,500 and the Turkish authorities £13,300 over this halftime incident. But we do have a game to get to. Turkey come out and kept waiting by England. A move that I feel like England never ever do, and maybe gets done to England a bit.
That's definitely not Sven's doing. Like Sven's, like I imagine Sven is already back in the changing rooms when this is going on. Like I can't imagine he's looking at this. Like if he is, he's like just silently eating an apple in the corner, just watching.
Right, the good football we saw from from England in the first half does slightly disappear, unfortunately. It's classic now. It's classic, big energy, kick anything that moves, and just hope. It's a second half, which is horrible to watch as a fan. Time doesn't really seem to move or stretch at all. Sergey comes on for Ton Chai on 60 minutes. Yeah, not really looking very much like a footballer. I mean, the Turkish, they do look like a bunch of hard men with some who look like classic 90s footballers transposed into 2003.
Yeah, there's a great clip of the Turkey managers like looking over the substitutes of what they're gonna get, what they're gonna do. And there's the Turkey manager and his assistant looking at like a big sheet of paper, and
Yeah.
I think he's got like a pen in his hand as well, and it's like it's what I assume is the tactics, but it looks like they're like running through like a joint best man speech.
It's
Like they're just going like, right, take that out, can't mention that, or she's here, can't do that whatsoever. And it's just they look amazing in this. This is also big suits 2003, obviously era two, and yeah, just absolutely wonderful.
What we get following that is a real bum in hands moment for England, as it's been christened by Nick. Let's have a listen.
Earlier this season. This is Nihat. And David James did well, but in goes Emre.
On board.
By Emre.
Well, he got in there behind England.
Yeah, it was terrifying watching this. This just felt like such a classic England goal to concede. This did that somehow just doesn't go in. So it's collected at a corner. England lose it as Nihat kind of runs through on the right hand side of the goal. James obviously rushes out. That's just what he does. We saw it in the first game. It kind of draws the shot from Nihat, but the ball kind of like flies into the sky, and it just seems to like perfectly drop for Emre. And you just think, right, there's no goalie in there. There's about 9 players on the line somehow, and just something gets in front of it, and it's blocked and kind of hits everything and goes away. And I think it ends up hitting like Emre's hand or something as well. But it's just perfect. I was just even like knowing the score, expecting like the crowd to just go up on that. And it's a goal again we have seen so many times for England, like bodies on the line, and it's just not good enough. But for some reason, it just doesn't work.
Thank the Lord above. And it stays 0-0. It's 0-0, by the way, listener, in case you've lost track.
There's a game going on.
Yeah. Turkey are starting to turn the pressure up, and England defence really are keeping it in them. So keeping them in it, sorry. So not necessarily missing Rio Ferdinand, at least in terms of heroic defending. Terry and Campbell keeping it locked down.
I think so. Yeah, this is kind of like the first time you really go, bloody hell, this could be a really good partnership, and it was for England. And it's like Sol Campbell is amazing in this game. Like in these 2 games that we've watched, he just reminds you of what a properly brilliant defender he was. And it's kind of John Terry's coming out party as well. But even though it is, John Terry's still in that wet gel look era for England as well. And it's just like, I know it's a style at the time, and I probably had the same haircut as John Terry as well around this time, not through design. I'm just looking at John Terry and going, that's what I want. But it's definitely like that wet 2003 short hair look that's just going on there, which like, I don't know, his hair just does look different, like as he goes on in his career, but you can never tell what's quite changed.
No, I think there's just less of it.
Yeah, probably.
And the face looking a bit more withered and old. Sol Campbell, a word for Sol Campbell. Who's again alongside Terry putting in a right old shift, but some players who've put in a shift are gone. Rooney is taken off, and Heskey is taken off as well. Vassell replaces Heskey. Who replaced Rooney? Was it Kieran Dyer?
Kieran Dyer as well, yeah. So Kieran Dyer is on just to try and pack the midfield and a bit of energy in there. He actually ends up playing like a number 10 role for England. So he's kind of like running through the middle to try and just get a bit of energy through that. You'd think it was kind of like, okay, everyone takes side. He'll take the left-hand side or the right or whatever England want to do. But he kind of stays up front with Vassell, which is like, what is this mad fever dream of an England front two? This is like when all your players are knackered on a football game. It's like, just play them there. It's fine.
It is mad. It is mad to think Sven was like a manager who was kind of taken seriously because like quite a lot of the time I'm like, what is he doing? There's not been many games where we've gone Sven's kind of won it for England there. I know that's not his forte, like it's the man management, but yeah.
I guess it is like he still has to like set up the team to be very good defensively, doesn't he?
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah. England do actually get a disallowed goal. Very close decision, actually. It's ruled out for offside. Kieran Dyer would sprint down the left, crossing for Beckham to head in, but the flag went up. We're approaching sort of the last bit of the game here as well. So there's 10 minutes to go. Nicky Butt kicks a man in the chest, so that's an example of how this game's going. It must be contagious, actually, as Kieran Dyer is sent over the top by England, only for Rushdoe to rush out and absolutely smash into Dyer with a street fighter kick, and then he gets up and bicycle kicks the ball away. Cleaner isn't having any of that and books Rushdoe. Probably, I mean, definitely, like that's considering he said the next thing that happens is a red. That's not a red. Absolutely smashing him. It's mad. It's crazy.
It's crazy. I genuinely don't think I've ever seen a footballer so high on the pitch. Like the rush to kind of just comes, and it's like some sort of like old kung fu film where like his whole body stays still, and then he floats towards Kieran Dyer, and then just scissor kicks him right in the head, like his studs go into his neck. It is wild, and like I think Alpai's running back to like towards goal, but we're on like the halfway line. And as this happened, I was like, God, that's a red. I don't remember this red card. And then it just happened. Like it doesn't get given. And you're like, this is insane.
Clipped by two guy. Wasn't quite high enough. See what they were trying to work with Alpai to flick it on. Look where Rushdoe is here. He's got to get the ball. And he's got Kieran Dyer. And now the referee is certainly going to punish Rushdoe. It's a yellow card.
And rightly so, because he's come there and he realises that he's made a bad mistake in coming for it in the first place, and if he doesn't take the ball, which he hadn't done, he realises he's got to take Kieran out, because if he doesn't, he's away. He's very fortunate there that there's one or two players behind him, because if there wasn't, he might have been seeing red instead of yellow.
What he was seeing as he came out was the halfway line. The infringement was committed on the edge of the
and we're back to it, and we're hanging on. Turkey, though, are taking long-range shots, making poor crosses. Hanging on in the sense that, you know, we don't have a lead to protect and it could all fall apart at any moment. But England have been pretty darn good, quite smart as well in how they've played the game, especially considering the circumstances, and are looking to close out with the draw that will take them to Euro 2004.
Fading away from the post. And England have done it! Plans can be made for Portugal next summer. England are the winners of the group in which they have remained unbeaten, and they've gained the draw tonight in a match that they did threaten to boycott. It keeps them just that 1 point ahead of Turkey. Unified in their approach in the team hotel back in England, and a lot's been said about that. They promise unity on the pitch, and Alan Shearer, they've delivered it.
They have, and as I said, with everything that's gone on this week, with Michael Owen being injured, with Sol Campbell in front of the FA, with the Rio Ferdinand situation, to come here in front of this hostile crowd and do the job they've done, I think they've done tremendous. They really have, without being spectacular, but they've come here, they've taken the point, and now they can start planning for Portugal.
Just as 6 years ago, when Glenn Hoddle's England qualified in very similar circumstances with a 0-0 draw in Rome, England have done it here. The direct route to Portugal is theirs. Turkey have a play-on place, and they've passed play-on tests before with flying colours. Istanbul will be quiet tonight. Let's hope it remains that way. It has been quiet by Sven-Göran Eriksson's England, despite David Beckham missing that first half penalty. England are through. 0-0. Good
So
enough.
after all of that, after all the drama, the two historic ties against Turkey, the dropping of Rio Ferdinand, the strike, and everything like that, the introduction of Wayne Rooney, England are going to Euro 2004. Historic night for the Three Lions, maybe their best qualifying result away from home since 1997 in Rome, and maybe even until 2023 in Rome as well.
think it gets quite overlooked, the fact that England in a qualifier went to it, Italy this year that we're talking about in 2023 and won in Rome. You just kind of that just gets really glossed over by like current people. I know Italy are like aren't in great
I'm
shakes at the moment, but it's just like really that's still a massive result that happened like
I'm
literally
thinking
months ago.
I'm thinking back to that awful bit of YouTube I watched earlier about Southgate just to get my anger cells pumping. And the guy at one point went, "Yeah, so we've qualified for the Euros, but it was could there have been an easier group for England? I mean, Italy are the best club, the best side in it." And I thought they're also the holders of the trophy.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Like
like
I know they've been like through it recently, and there's a lot of like that has gone wrong for Italy, but it's still Italy. This is
judging off
still like a
that,
massive side.
you couldn't have got a harder team in qualify. Like you literally couldn't have got a hard anyway. Let's look at the aftermath. For Turkey, Alpay gets cancelled. The press did not hold back, blamed him for his part in the brawl, which potentially derailed things. I guess he got rattled and paid the price for it. Aston Villa released him from his contract.
Yeah,
Is,
they said no more. You're gone, mate.
is that for poking? What really? For poking Beckham?
Yeah, so basically, he was seen as just like obviously the villain of the piece. That even in Turkey, they were like the papers, as you say, had he said that he derailed everything, and instead of like sticking to the football, he kind of took it all into his own hands. It's seen as, and Aston Villa just went, we don't want that around because could you imagine the stick he'd have got around England, like the grounds? And they just thought we're not having anything to do with him anymore, and they cancelled his contract.
He would blame Beckham basically. This would not have happened if the confrontation had been with any other player than David Beckham. The time and effort the English media give to Beckham is unfair. It's an injustice to the other players in the England team. The other players work harder than he does. What a load of shit.
I
Um,
know, yeah.
Turkey would finish second in the group and end up in the dreaded playoffs against Latvia. Seen as a straightforward tie for Turkey, but they would lose the first leg 1-0. The return game saw Turkey overturn the deficit, go ahead in the tie on the 64th minute with a goal from Davor Šuker, but 2 minutes later, Latvia pulled one back and would earn a draw on the night. So they would go to Euro 2004, progressing 3-2 over the two legs. Turkey don't even get to the Euros. Big shock.
That's like really forgotten about. Like this was a great Turkey team who, because of England, just didn't get to go to the Euros because they were kind of England broke them. Like
Yeah.
in a way that with these games that they had totally gone and like lost to Latvia. I think Latvia don't even think they got a point. I think they were drawn in like a really tough qualifying group. And you just think like, what on earth has gone on here for this to happen to Turkey? And they don't go to the World Cup in 2006. They do go to Euro 2008 though, and are again amazingly one of the teams of the tournament. So they just have such an on and off relationship with major competitions.
All or nothing, isn't it, for them? Let's have a look at England then, who went to the Euros, obviously, and had a little bit of time to reflect on a chaotic week, with the atmosphere surrounding the game, the tunnel incident, and how England stood up and responded to it. It kind of brought those fans who disagreed with the strike and all of that stuff back on side. Also, Terry and Campbell kind of praised in the aftermath, so kind of showing that without Ferdinand, we're going to be okay at centre back, providing that neither of those two get injured, which I'm sure they do, don't they? Doesn't Ledley King end up starting in the Euros, or is that a different tournament?
I think he does. Yeah, I think there's been an injury and Ledley King ends up playing, but Campbell and Terry end up playing most of the games there. We've done a whole episode actually on the build up to the tournament and what would end up being England's exit from it as well. If you haven't heard, so I'd definitely recommend that as like the next piece to go ahead. But yeah, it kind of all goes back now to Rio Ferdinand and the outcome of what happened with him too.
Yeah, it was unsurprisingly a bit of a circus. The circus continued. Really, we'd already seen it. So, how the press would gather information on the story also became news. I think you alluded to this earlier, with the News of the World and Sunday Mirror both claiming details of Ferdinand's mobile phone records, claiming his phone was on during that period that we missed or was late for the test, and he may have been contactable. The Sunday Mirror claimed that the first person he contacted via a text message as he left United's training ground was a private doctor. The News of the World also claimed he had been in contact with two women on the afternoon. Two women, eh?
Imagine that. Imagine knowing two women. Sounds great.
The sports pages even printed a fake graphic of Ferdinand's phone bill, claiming 22 calls and texts on Ferdinand's phone between 12:39 p.m. and 3:51 p.m. on the day of his missed test. So there was this growing idea that Ferdinand's phone had been hacked, as someone phoned everyone Ferdinand had contacted on September the 23rd, suggesting that the person had access to his records. There were even people calling those close to Ferdinand, pretending to be his lawyer or members of the defence team, with Ferdinand's driver contacted and offered money for information. So the press there stopping at nothing. Ferdinand's defence was he had forgotten to meet the officials, went shopping and went for lunch. Head of the World Anti-Doping Agency, Dick Pound, said neither of these excuses are acceptable reasons for not taking a drugs test. Manchester United's lawyers claimed grey areas over the rules, where the FA can take action against the player only if he refuses a test, not if he simply forgot, which, yeah, makes sense. The FA rejected this interpretation, with Peleos admitting there is no rule which says Ferdinand had to be banned, that it was his call. The previous season, as a bit of, I forget what they call it, sort of case law, I guess, Rushden and Diamonds goalkeeper Billy Turley tested positive for nandrolone, escaped with a warning and no suspension. And the FA refused to kind of make this a story by releasing his identity. So for the verdict, I'll hand it over to you, Mr. Nicholson.
On Friday the 19th of December at the Reebok Stadium, almost 3 months following Ferdinand's missed drugs test, the FA Disciplinary Committee imposed an 8-month ban and a £50,000 fine on Ferdinand for this missing the drugs test. The verdict was delivered unanimously following a 2-day hearing. Imagine the FA dinners that would have gone on for 2 days at this point. Ferdinand, Alex Ferguson, Man United's club doctor, and Eyal Berkovic were all to appear in court, as well as Sven providing a character witness for Ferdinand. FIFA and the FA said they wanted Ferdinand banned for a year. The independent panel agreed this would be excessive. Dick Pound from the Big Doping Police also said Ferdinand was fortunate to get away with just a third of the maximum sentence. So with all that in mind, Man United did appeal the decision on the grounds of a Manchester City player had missed a drugs test in 2001. This was like a reserve player, youth player, is why you don't really hear about it. He was selected for a drugs test and was driving to Liverpool to pick up his mother from the airport and was caught in a traffic jam on his way back. The doping body said he would need to give a urine sample, which he did and passed, but was fined £20,000 and given no ban in a secret hearing without his name being given to the press. So there is history of this happening, like the year before as well. And because it wasn't ever leaked out, the FA were a lot more lenient on it. When it turns out, actually, it sounds like Manchester United actually leaked his name out and would leak Ferdinand's name out to make a bigger story of it and to put pressure on them. So by doing that, maybe they wouldn't have bothered. And Ferdinand, was too big of a name for that not to come out at some point. Like, you imagine years later if that would have happened, or like the news would have come out at least. But yeah, we get that.
It's that kind of big name, isn't it? The kind of, I think so, yeah. It's much more of a stamp of your authority, as we said, which is what Peleos wanted to do. The appeal was unsuccessful. Rio Ferdinand would miss the rest of the season, all of Euro 2004 and the start of the 2004-05 season. And Mark Peleos would resign in August 2004 due to a scandal regarding an affair with an FA secretary. Ferdinand would later say that he'll never forgive the FA for the way he was treated. People had done worse and very similar to what I'd done, and didn't get treated like that. I might end up doing an exclusive show on it one day because I think there's a lot of
like and subscribe.
There's a lot of football fans out there that thinks there's no smoke without fire. And that's it, really. We end this saga there, with England heading to Euro 2004 without Rio, but with a lot of hope that this time it could be their time. These two games, Nick, were they England?
Yes, they were very England. It's the last real qualifiers that ever meant anything. I'll always think that, really. And so to me, this is very much my England in terms of like really competitive qualifying games. And there's just so much drama and FA nonsense and fan behaviour and strikes and all that kind of stuff. I know it's not what we see England as now, but it's a good reminder of what England kind of used to be.
Brilliant. That is perfect. Word for word, absolutely perfect. Thank you, Nick, and we'll speak to everyone else soon.
Thank you very much.
Time can do. Baby, you mean everything to me. Darling, there's no danger with all that we've been through, that anyone could love you more than me.